Hey, YouTube family, and welcome to another edition of the Kevin Strong Show. And in this video, we're going to talk about inflation and how it's affecting the elderly, Social Security, how it's draining retirement account. Please stick around because at the end of this video, I'm going to show you a chart to kind of give you some insight on how to figure out how much money it's going to take based on your own lifestyle, and more importantly, how inflation is going to affect that. And the numbers are very, very daunting. Without further ado, we're going to jump into this article. But before we do, I'm going to humbly ask for you to smash that like button. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, please do so now. Comment and share because I care. So without further ado, we are going to talk about this article. So please stick around for that chart that I mentioned because I think it's going to really provide a lot of insight. And more importantly, I think it's going to shock you on how fast inflation actually eats away at fixed income. Okay, the title of this article says inflation especially tough on elderly, draining Social Security and retirement accounts. And of course, I'm going to get these ads right when I start this. Okay, so for 10 million seniors, Social Security is at least 90% of their income. Okay, so on average, as the article clearly says here, the payments are just over $1,600 a month. The average rent in the United States, I haven't looked recently, but I think it might be somewhere around $1,700 or $1,800 a month. So this doesn't even cover your rent if you look at what the average rent goes for in this country. And in most cases, in most states, your Social Security income is taxed. So that $1,600 check that they're citing here in this article is before Uncle Sam has gotten his pound of flesh. Okay, so we're talking about inflation here. Consumer prices surged 8.6%. This article was in June of 2022. We know recently that CPI number, the consumer price index, is jumped up to around 9.1%. So it's a little bit higher. Here's this one lady named Joyce out of Houston saying she's 71. She's basically saying she's busted. No savings, it's depleted. That's it. If I can make it from month to month, that's a good thing. So that's a very sad situation I've talked about ad nauseum because you work your whole life, and I have a different opinion about this, and I'll get to it later maybe, or I might just save that for another video. But I just think too many people retire early. Too many people are in a job that they don't like, and an indication that you're lying to yourself is that, oh, I love my job, or I can't wait to get my pension. But more importantly, you're counting how many years you have remaining in that occupation so you don't have to do it anymore. Man, after 10 more years, I'm going to tell this place to kiss my ass, right? That's typically an indication you don't like what you do. So, and on top of that, most people when they retire are going to be living off less income. For another story. So anyway, let's go ahead and continue down on this article. Like I said, 90% basically are living off Social Security, which is $1,600. That's their main source of income. So this is a problem that's going to continually grow. Inflation has hit a 40-year high. Like I said, this article was written in June of 2022. We know since then inflation has creeped up to 9.1% annually. It's just a bad situation. This other lady named Cynthia, who's 70, says she went back to work part-time at the University of Houston to stop draining her account. So she just wanted to stop the bleeding. I think I read some article recently within this year, I think almost 1.7 million people who recently retired, unretired, and got back into the workforce because of inflation, and they just can't keep up with their monthly expenses. The amount of money they thought they had is not enough. These folks realize that within 12 to 24 months after recently retiring. What's it going to look like for the average person who thinks they're in a good spot in 2022, only to find out 15, 20 years later, you're just setting yourself up for the inevitable? And I'm going to prove that with that special chart I'm going to share with you. So without further ado, let's go into one of these charts that I was talking about. So I'm going to have to pause this thing for a second here and share my screen. I apologize for this. Let's see if we can find this here. Okay. Inflation, senior income. Okay, this is the one we want. All right, U.S. inflation rate. So this one, guys, is from 1960 to 2022. Okay, so what are we talking about here? 40 plus 22. That's 62 years. That's a long period of time to measure to get an idea of what's happening with inflation. So let me go here to this article here or to this graph. So as you can see here, I want to show you something. So this starts to average out inflation year over year. So if you go from 1960, let's say, to 2000, okay, and you punch it in here, you come all the way over here, inflation went down a little bit as an overall aggregate, but it's at 3.38%. Easy math, 3.4%. Okay, we all see that. But now I'm going to move this from 1960 to 2022, the year we're in right now. Keep in mind that previous one was 3.4%. Now look at it. It's at 4.7%, right? That's like a 30% jump compared to 3.4 to 4.7. Maybe a 40% jump. I'm not really doing the math correctly, but a significant jump in average inflation, right? See that? I went from 2000. It was 3.38%. And then we're going to jump this up to 2022. And we're at 4.7. So if you take the 4.7% and minus the 3.4, 0.7 minus 3.4, that's 1.30 divided into 3.4. That's a 40% increase in inflation, average inflation, 40%. And inflation's not cooling down anytime soon. So that's a very, very, very alarming number. So let me show you how quickly, over a period of time, inflation can eat away at your fixed income. So I don't care if you're on Social Security, if you're a first responder, you're a teacher, whatever, you think you got this $30,000, $40,000, $50,000, $60,000, whatever. I'm going to show you how quickly in a 20-year time period, inflation just eats away at your so-called nest egg. So last but not least, we're going to remove that one and go to another one here. Let's see here. Okay. Let me see. Might need to make this one a little bit bigger so you guys can see it. Let me see here. Can you see that? Beat inflation here. I just want to make sure I make this thing really big. There we go. Okay. So we're going to do this calculation. All right. So here's the numbers we're going to plug in. Let's say you're retiring this year. And let's say your retirement is $40,000. Social Security, private pension, first responder, teacher, whatever. I'm just using this as an example. And we know, as of right now, over the last, 62 years, inflation's at 4.7%. I'm going to assume it doesn't exceed 4% because I'm going to be really conservative with this number. So what happens is that if you put $40,000 in 2022 and inflation averages 4% for the next 20 years, which takes you to 2042, it accumulates 63.86%. Wait a minute. Did this thing just do a thing on it? Yeah, it did. Hold up. Let me go back. 4%. The average inflation rate of 4%, cumulative inflation of 119%. So the translation to that is you have problems because you see this number up here. You see this number that I just highlighted? In 20 years, $40,000 is now $87,000. Let me say that again. If you are retiring this year with all of your fixed income, your Social Security and your pension, and you say, I'm sitting sweet, my house is paid for, I'm in a good spot, I haven't had any hip replacements. I got all my hip replacements. I got all my teeth. I don't have diabetes. I don't have any of that stuff, right? I'm going strong, no pun intended. You got $40,000 in 2022, but 20 years later, right? You need almost $90,000. And that's assuming that inflation stays at 4%. You see where I'm going at? You see where I'm going with these numbers, folks? It is very alarming and disturbing. Too many people in this country are retiring financially before they're able to do so. So what's your alternative? Find ways to have either reduce your expenses or find ways to create passive income that's going to at least meet or exceed inflation on a yearly basis. And if you haven't wrapped your mindset around that strategy, then you're going to be looking at these daunting numbers. In 2042, you're almost 80 years old. Now you do have a hip replacement. Now you probably do have diabetes, and you probably don't even have any teeth. But at least soup is cheaper than chicken. But all jokes aside, when you really think about this, this is how systematically people who retire start off well, and then 15, 20 years later, they commit financial suicide. No pun intended. So also what I like to leave you with is that when you start looking at these nest eggs that you have in retirement accounts, like 401ks for you folks that are in the private sector, for some of you guys who are first responders or work for city or state government entities, they call them a 457, a deferred compensation plan. And you say, oh man, Kevin, I'm going to have, $300,000 when I retire or $400,000 when I retire, plus my pension. Well, you have to factor in future value and factor in inflation. What's $400,000 going to be worth in today's dollars, right? And it's called a present value formula for that. I'm not going to get into that, but just for easy math, let's just say you were calculating $400,000 on top of this example of having $40,000 a year. Okay. So you thought you would be pretty good, but when you factor in inflation, that $400,000 20 years from now in today's dollars might only be $180,000. And that's something people don't calculate. They get fixated on the future value of something that they're investing in, and they don't factor in the inflation and adjust it accordingly for inflation to get an idea in terms of real dollars today, what that dollar amount really looks like 20 years from now. Those of you who are over 50 like I am, remember back in the day when your mom used to send you to the store with the dollar and says, go get me a soda or a pop, and you keep the change. Try doing that now, all right? You'll probably get arrested for shoplifting because you know as well as I do, $1's not going to buy you a can of soda. So that's inflation. That's the same principle that you folks need to apply when you're trying to figure out how much money does it really take to retire and how much money is my so-called retirement account really worth 15, 20, and for some of you younger folks, 30 years from now, right? 30 years from now. Let's put this in there. Let's say you're going to have $800,000 and you're hoping to get that 30 years from now because you're a young person. You got these monthly contributions that you're putting into your 401k, 457, and you got these people who don't know a damn thing about long-term investing that's telling you, hey, based on this fund strategy, you ought to be sitting sweet with your pension, and in 30 years from now, you're going to have $800,000. Okay. I know this isn't a present value, future value calculator, but let's go to 2052 at 4%. See that? $2.6 million to be equivalent to having $800,000 in 2022. You got nothing, homie. It looks good now because you're not factoring in inflation and you're not factoring in compounding inflation in this example over a 30-year period. So what is my answer to all of this? For a lot of folks, they probably shouldn't retire. They're going to have to keep working. And if they don't, they're playing with fire. I also think you should come up with some kind of passive income in terms of starting a side hustle, something that you can do remotely online in the event that your health deteriorates as you get older. I've always said as a young person, typically speaking, on average, your mind will break down a hell of a lot faster your body will break down a hell of a lot faster than your mind, right? You can be in a wheelchair and still collect rent payment if you have rental property. You can be in a wheelchair and still collect and still learn how to manipulate stocks or trade stocks. So there's a lot of ways you can create supplemental income passively that's not labor intensive. And that's the chess game. The checkers game is just saying, well, oh, hell, I'll go ahead and get a job at Walmart. Well, who knows how automated some of these service jobs will be 15, 20, and 30 years from now. Those jobs are probably not going to be available. You're going to be dealing with age discrimination, and you probably have not kept up with technology. So I hope you enjoyed the content of this video. If you are enjoying my videos, please do me the honor once again. Hit that like button, comment, and share because you know I care. This was the Kevin Strong Show, and I'll see you guys in the next video.